and Tanisha Austin won an incredibly important, actually, I guess I shouldn't say one. It was a settlement with an appraiser. This, you may remember this from a few years ago. They are homeowners in Marin County in California, Northern California, and they got an appraisal on the house because they were doing a refi. And they got the appraisal and they felt like, it was a little low. Well, they did an experiment. I remember we talked about this. They did an experiment where they had some friends come over who were white. But they had, it was a different appraiser, and they redecorated the house. Right, and they took out all their family photos, their art and everything. So this was not a black-owned home. The appraisal was $500,000 more. So they filed a lawsuit against their appraiser, the one who lowballed them, and there was a settlement just last month in this case. I can't discuss the money, but there are other things that came out of this that hopefully will benefit other homeowners who unfortunately deal with discrimination in these areas. So joining us right now are Paul and Tanisha Austin. Welcome to TNC Live.
No problem. Thank you for having us.
So, thank you.
This is really important. So, you have settled. This didn't come down to a court verdict. What do you think the implications here are that the appraisal industry now knows not to do this again?
They should be on alert.
Yeah, what do you think?
I think that people are on notice. Appraisers are on notice that if they continue to behave this way, that there could be repercussions. And so, obviously people don't want to be sued. So hopefully they're like, let's reconsider how we go about evaluating homes.
Yeah, accountability is so important to us.
What is the end game for an appraiser who lowballs a house in a black-owned house? What do they gain by lowballing?
I don't think it's about them gaining anything, either one way or another, because they're not the lender, they're not the realtor. So it's not about them gaining anything. It's more of them perpetuating historical practices that have led to families of color being cheated out of money for generations. So I think it's just the practice that they're just conditioned to do.
When you think about how wealth is created here in America, it's created through property, most of it, right? Mm-hmm. Something that Black and brown people haven't had a super opportunity to get, and so part of it is just the way that people biases show up, not even realizing that, hey, I already look at this neighborhood that was historically redlined or not, or when I come into a situation, I see a Black or brown family, my biases show up. And a lot of that has to do with history.
Yeah, I think you're right that in this case, and it probably happens a lot, and that it doesn't come to light, that this was a personal bias of the appraiser who came in and said, all right, it's a Black family, I'm going to mark it down. Did you, during this case, during this lawsuit, did you have an opportunity to sit across the table from the appraiser? And were there questions about this? Did you gather that it really was
like in a deposition?
Yeah,
we can't really talk about that.
Got it.
Oh, yeah, I get that because there's a contradiction,
right? I think the problem is bigger than just one bad player. The problem is systemic. And so that's the message that we're trying to get out there. There's an intrinsic value that's placed on the life of a white person in this country that shows up in several ways, including housing. And so, there were studies done by both Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, that disclosed that this is not just Tanisha and Paul Austin. This is not a one-time incident. This is happening all across the country, all the time.
And we learned a lot ourselves to understand, like, the appraisal industry is 95% white, is dominated by white males. You can only become an appraiser by becoming an apprentice to an appraiser, right? So it's that almost like what I would call that good old boy, like, I'm going to pull up those that's close to me. And if you are already have been, created this system that's negatively affecting Black and brown people, then the cycle is just going to continue until you break that cycle.
How does it feel? I mean, you may have really made a big difference for an untold number of families by putting the word out that you guys are going to be held accountable if you do this. Must feel really good.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit of both, right? We have all the emotions all the time because we've been at the forefront. We've been talking about this a lot. And so we are glad that we was able to settle, but then we also have that feeling because there's so many other families that didn't get any recourse.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so we're just one person or one family, but there's so many others that came either after us or came before us that essentially didn't get anything. And so hopefully this will move the bar super far in order for people to get what they need. But one part that we talk about is the education piece.
Right, and I know you guys have started a foundation, an organization that addresses that, especially with young children in that area, correct?
Well, I started a business, Critical Friends, that helps companies or school districts, et cetera, to look at their diversity, equity, inclusion strategy and how to make it actionable instead of performative. I also think it's important, and then Paul has an organization, Play Marin, that looks to bring kids together from different backgrounds through play, like using play to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion.
I love what you guys are doing with
Can we
it
just
too.
add briefly that we want folks to know that to arm themselves by knowing what their comps are in their neighborhood when they're asking for an appraisal. Also, to if they feel like the appraisal doesn't come in where they expect it, to ask for a request for evaluation, an ROV. They can ask their lender for that, and then also to contact their local fair housing association to get support.
Absolutely.
Good
All
advice.
very important advice.
Yep. Really appreciate you guys coming on. Congratulations again.
Thanks so much.
So thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Remember,
All right.
Red City Black History.
Absolutely.
They are